So, welcome on in, everyone. I'm sitting here now. You're watching this video at least sometime after 12 noon on February 20th, 2026. However, it is actually 2:33 in the morning of February 20th, 2026, and you might ask yourself, why in the world is this man up at 2:30 in the morning? Doesn't he have to work? Doesn't he have things to do that wasn't he running around working all day or something? The day prior. Well, of course I was. Um, some information fell into my lap that I wanted to do a video on, and granted, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to keep the promise I made in my last two videos of streaming at least once or twice this week, because shortly after me making those videos, I got very ill. In fact, everyone in my house got very ill, and it was a persistent little bug. It just, kicked all of our butts and just did not want to go anywhere. So I thought I'd give it some time, and I hoped at least by Thursday, which was yesterday, that I'd be feeling better. And thankfully, I did start feeling better. But of course, the day got ahead of me, and had some real life stuff that I had to take care of. Nothing bad, of course, but very time consuming. And next thing I knew, it was after midnight, and I was still doing things that I needed to do. Then it was 1 a.m., and then it was 2 a.m., and finally I just thought to myself, well, I do Abyssal Musings with my co-host Samuel the Infamous on Fridays, and so Fridays I spend that time getting the program for Abyssal Musings ready, putting all the finishing touches on it, and so I was just about ready to go to bed and just call this week a wash because my time doesn't get any better on Saturday or Sunday either. My weekends are actually quite busy for me, but I thought considering what fell into my lap and something that I caught on my own, I thought that this one of these topics needs to be spoken on, regardless of the time or the hour, that I speak it. Um, Considering that it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart for a few reasons. But I digress. We'll get into that. So tonight or this morning, whichever you prefer, we've got two different topics. One has to do with the film industry, and the other has to do with the world famous Veterans Affairs. Um, for those of you who do not know, the Veterans Affairs is an organization that is governed by Congress and is purposed to serve the needs of military veterans and active duty personnel. Right? We'll get more into that later. But right now, what I wanted to lead in with is a story that I read. Um, Now, in my opinion, one of the best movies of all time is Silence of the Lambs for several reasons. And this came across me today. Silence of the Lambs team apologizes to gender activists for making one of the greatest thriller films of all time. Initially, when I read this, I thought this was a joke. I thought this was satire. What about Silence of the Lambs could you possibly be apologizing to gender activists for? This movie was made in I think the late '80s, early '90s. What are you apologizing to gender activists for? And so I didn't want to read ahead. I wanted to be live. I wanted to be or streaming when I read this because I caught some tidbits, but I just thought the devil's in the details. It can't be what I read. So we're going to find out right now. On its 35th anniversary, some of the creatives behind the Silence of the Lambs went to apologize for certain aspects of the iconic film. Okay, while long celebrated as one of the greatest horror slash thrillers of the 1990s, if not of all time, modern gender activists have claimed that the film has raised concerns about reinforcing negative stereotypes when viewed through a contemporary cultural lens. So these people they're going all the way back years and complaining about a movie. As a black man, that's like me going outside and complaining about the movie Roots. Utterly ridiculous. So let me read more into this. The conflict comes from the characterization of Buffalo Bill, the serial killer who skinned his female victims so that he could make himself into a woman. Now, Edward Saxon, who produced the film, and Ted Levine, who played Buffalo Bill, are expressing some regret. Wow. Okay. Creators reflect on cultural shifts. In an interview with the Hollywood Reporter, Saxon and Levine discussed the film's legacy and how their feelings about the Silence of the Lambs has changed. Quote, there are certain aspects of the movie that don't hold up too well, Levine said. We all know more, and I'm a lot wiser about transgender issues. There are some lines in that script and movie that are unfortunate. Which one? Put the lotion in the basket? It puts the lotion on the skin or it gets the hose again? Which one? Up until now, this has never been an issue for anyone. The Silence of the Lambs won Best Picture, Director, Actor, Actress, and Screenplay at the Academy Awards, released on February 14, 1991, Valentine's Day. It had the earliest release date for a Best Picture winner and is arguably the only horror film to win top honors. Now, in my opinion, this is not a horror film. This is a thriller. I don't know. This is a thriller. It's not a horror movie. There's I mean Buffalo Bill is a monster, but he's not like a werewolf or anything like that. When I think of horror, I think about vampires, werewolves, monsters, not you know not a crazed serial killer. Um, Regarding his portrayal of Buffalo Bill, Levine said that his understanding the gender experience has changed. It's unfortunate that the film vilified that and is effing wrong. And you can quote me on that. For his part, Levine said that putting minority groups in a bad light was never his intention. I didn't play him as being gay or trans. I think he was just a effed up heterosexual man. That's what I was doing. Folks, let me clarify something about Buffalo Bill as I watched as his character was explained. Buffalo Bill was never said to be trans. In fact, in the movie, if I'm not mistaken, Clarice spoke to someone that knew him, and the person that knew Buffalo Bill said, "This guy isn't. He's not trans. He's looking for an identity. He's looking for something to latch onto." But this man is. He was like, he's not trans. The Buffalo Bill character was not transgender. He had. He was. He was a lost soul who had a history of abuse that was out there running around killing women and was trying to latch on to something, to a community of people that he really wasn't a part of. So why are you apologizing for a character that was never trans? He was never trans. If anything, it makes sense to me that the community would have been dancing on that man's on his grave if he was a real character, if he was real. Here you have in the movie, you have a movie character that is latching onto your community and is doing villainous things in the name of your community when he's actually faking, and he gets dealt with in the end. Is that not justice? I mean, it's movie justice. Why? I don't understand it. I don't understand why Levine. I don't understand what is the purpose of the apology. What's the purpose of the apology? It makes no sense to me at all. Intent versus impact. That there was never any malicious intent was echoed by Saxon. As we made the film, there was just no question in our minds that Buffalo Bill was a completely aberrant personality, that he wasn't gay or trans, he was sick. Exactly, like I just said. The Silence of the Lambs becoming controversial within gender activist communities was nothing he anticipated. From my point of view, we weren't sensitive enough to the legacy of a lot of stereotypes and their ability to harm. Again, the character was not gay or trans. Why are you complaining about a person faking to be one of you and ends up getting himself killed in the end? No one said that all of you are all that trans or gay people are running around killing women and skinning them to create a woman suit. Nobody's ever said that. I've never read a news report of anyone from the trans community doing something like that. It's like they just pick something to complain about. Maybe that makes me sound insensitive, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But of all the things to run around and complain about, you pick a decades old movie to complain about a character that is severely mentally ill and homicidal, pretending to be a member of your community. And it was said in the movie that he was not trans or gay. Why are you complaining? And why is Levine and the other guy complaining about it? I mean, apologizing. Why are you apologizing? You did nothing wrong. You were an actor playing a part. They are using today's standards. You have a group of activists that are judging a decades old movie with today's standards. There's a black themed cartoon that used to be on the air called the Boondocks. And the Boondocks started as a newspaper comic. There's no way in the world that that cartoon could be shown today, even though it was black created and voiced with black characters. I don't know what else to think about this. I mean, Saxon, okay, that's the other guy's name. He emphasized, quote, there's regret, but it didn't come from any place of malice. Everybody knows that. It's a flipping movie. It's a movie. It wasn't aimed at harming anybody. Let's see. However, some users on X argue that no apologies for the Silence of the Lamb are needed. They're not. They point out that both the book and the movie are clear that Buffalo Bill is not a trans character. Exactly, like I said. What are they complaining about? Why are they complaining? They're complaining about a character that was not trans. There's no mention of trans people doing any of this stuff in the movie at all. What are they complaining about? And what are you two knuckleheads apologizing for? Audience pushback. In a lengthy post on X, YouTube personality That Star Wars Girl notes that a line in the film clarifies Buffalo Bill's underlying mental health issues. Like I said, if they actually read the book, if they actually read the book or watched the movie, they know that Buffalo wasn't actually a transsexual. Exactly. So the ones complaining probably hadn't done either. They probably have not done either. They probably haven't read the book or read or watched the movie. They just picked something to complain about. They probably overheard somebody talking about it and just decided to make a big spectacle because they want their 15 minutes. Quote, Billy's not a real transsexual, but thinks he is, he wants to be. Jamie Gumb failed the psychological evaluations that are requirements for sex reassignment surgeries. That's right, he did. He failed the requirements, which is why he started killing women and started making the skin suit. He didn't have what it takes to join their community. Mentally, he couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle the procedure. And he already wasn't there mentally. That's like saying that's like going out and doing a tryout for a football team and being told that you're not strong enough physically or mentally to be a part of that team. And decades later, someone else a group of people come along complaining about this character, saying, "Oh, well, we're football players, and he was a bad representation of us." And then the guy that plays, "Oh, I'm sorry, I did that." It's like, but he never made the team, and he never played football before, and he just wanted to join the team so that he could become the stat guy. He just wanted to wear the uniform and record your stats, but he didn't want to play. The film features a scene where Clarice Starling and Hannibal Lecter are building a psychological profile of Buffalo Bill. Clarice notes that there is no correlation between transsexualism and violence. Buffalo Bill, however, is kidnapping and murdering women. What do you like again? What are you two apologizing for? Levine, Saxon. What are you apologizing for? Hannibal Lecter replies, Billy is not a real transsexual. There are three major centers for transsexual surgery. I wouldn't be surprised if Billy had applied for sex reassignment at one or all of them and had been rejected. Billy hates his own identity, you see, and he thinks this makes him a transsexual. While Levine and Saxon may feel the need to apologize in the light of cultural shifts, Silence of the Lambs remains one of the highest praised thrillers of all time. Decades after its release, the film is still sparking conversations about the nature of good and evil, even when it captivates through cinematic language. More than that, it demonstrates how art can be both timeless and mirror reflecting society that watches it. I've never been so aggravated in my life over reading a piece of material. That had to be one of the most aggravating things that I've ever read. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the Veterans Affairs. So going back to it, and I said I'd get into it. For those of you who don't know who the VA is, once again, they take care of his vets. Our we had, and it's split into two sides. You have the medical side, and you have the benefit side. So when you think about the VA hospital, that's just one side of it. That's not That's not all of it, right? That's just one side that deals with us. The other side, the benefit side, that's when you hear about a veteran having a disability rating, um, and they might get compensated a certain amount of money because they were hurt, or they have money for school, benefits, things like that. And so it's two separate sides. Just like the VA, it's like a left hand and a right hand, but they don't hold hands, so they don't communicate. So even if you apply for disability benefits with the VA has to get permission to contact the medical side, the VHA, to get your medical records and get your medical records from any other outside hospital. What dropped in my lap today, or yesterday now, was it's basically some type of letter. Um, at least I thought it was a letter, but a good friend of mine that I served with um, messaged me and sent me a copy of this, and he was livid, to say the least. And basically, the VA passed some kind of rule, and in my opinion, probably broke a few laws doing it, because they were in such a hurry to screw over veterans who are 70% disabled or high, that they bypassed decisions by a high level appeals court, and created a rule that they decided overrides the court's decision. And so basically what they did is, when somebody gets a disability rating, let's say I hurt my back real my I was let's say I was in the Navy, hurt my back real bad, and in order for me to really walk around, they had to prescribe me ibuprofen. Okay, I'll just use ibuprofen. I'll just use it as an example. You too. Um, well, my rating. Let's say I get 100% for my back, and I can't work because I can't lift anything. I'm prone to severe muscle spasms. Um, so I need the ibuprofen pretty much just to function, just for basic functions, right? And that's how they determine how what percentage you get is how well can you move and what is the impact on your life. What these fools decided to do is they try to pull a fast one on everybody and said, well, if you're 70% or and over here, okay, let's read this. I'm going to this. You got to understand. On February 17, 2026, the VA published an interim final rule amending 38 CFR 4.10. The rule mandates that disability ratings be based on a veteran's actual functional impairment as medicated. So, in other words, going back to what I was just saying, the analogy, they changed the rule to say that if you are 70% or over and you're moving well because of the ibuprofen, they will reduce your rating and because the medication is helping you get around. That's like saying, well, if someone loses a leg and you give them a no, 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 that's not a good one. I think I'll just stick with the back analogy. This is the dumbest thing that I've ever read. The medication is the reason why these people are walking around and functioning. The underlying problem is still there. It's not going anywhere. That's why they have disability, because the VA knows not a lot of times certain disabilities don't get any better. Once they're there, they're there. The best thing you can do is manage them. So I'll go on. Well, what it says after this is, rather than the severity of the underlying condition without treatment. If medication or treatment lowers the level of disability, the rating will reflect that lower level. The VA bypassed the standard notice and comment rulemaking process, making the rule effective immediately upon publication. So, what I believe this means is, normally if the VA thinks that you're doing better and they want to reduce your rating and the pay that goes along with it, they have to send you a letter. They have to warn you. They have to send you a letter and telling you that you're in their intent, because they have to give you the opportunity to fight their decision. They can't just they can't just take something from you and not give you the chance to defend yourself or plead your case. That's why they have to give you, and it's not a quick process, because once after they send you the letter, I think you have about a month to respond, and and not only do they have to give you a letter, they have to drag you back in the hospital. They have to put you back through testing to see if anything's actually changed. They have to do all kinds of stuff, right? But what they just did is they said, well, screw all that. We're not doing all of that. We're just gonna up and decide. We're gonna go into your medical files and we're gonna look and see, oh, is this guy is he getting ibuprofen for us back? Yeah. Is he and he's taking the ibuprofen, and that will be evidenced by you requesting your refills. So they're gonna say, well, how many refills is he getting refills every 90 days? Yeah. Okay, so he's using that. Did he walk in or did he crawl in, or was he, or was he wheeled in? Oh, he walked in. Oh, okay. Um, so he walked in. He's taking his ibuprofen. So we're gonna take that as um, he's doing much better as long as he's medicated. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to skip the whole process that we have to do, and we're just going to drop him down to, maybe from 100% to 40%. So what are the vets going to do once they find out about this? They're going to stop taking their meds. You know what else they're going to stop doing for their medical, especially if they're 100%? Because once you hit 100%, or a higher level, a higher percentage, you don't have to go to the VA for your medical care. If you live too far away from a VA hospital, like I do, you can go to an outside hospital. And the VA can't just go to those hospitals and snatch your stuff. They actually need your consent to do it. And you have the right not to give it to them. And the only way or reason that you would have to give them to them is if you were filing for a disability ratings increase, or if you were filing a new claim, because you have to back up your claim with evidence. So vets are going to stop taking their meds. Now, there's other things that are going to happen, but that's the first thought that's going to come to mind. Well, then I'll just stop taking the meds. Well, then the VA will say, "Oh, he stopped taking the meds. Oh, then he doesn't need them anymore, and he must be cured. So we're going to take the entire rating." Guarantee you, that's what they're thinking. We know once we do this, we know these vets are going to stop taking their meds, and when they do, we're going to take the entire rating. Because if you're telling us that you're not taking your medication, you're telling us that you don't need it. Guarantee you, let me say this. I'm willing to bet that's what was said. The practical impact on veterans. This rule affects any veteran whose disability is managed by medication or treatment. Potentially millions of individuals across 500 plus diagnostic codes. A veteran rated at 70% or 100% for a condition such as PTSD, cardiovascular disease, or a musculoskeletal injury could face a rating reduction at their next examination if their medication makes them appear functional. The rule reframes effective treatment as evidence of reduced disability rather than evidence of ongoing medical need. It treats the symptom management as the cure. If you stop taking the medication, the underlying issue is going to pop its head up. That is the first thing that a lot of these vets are going to think, and they're going to stop showing up. If part of their treatment is seeing the psychologist, guess what's going to happen? They're going to stop going. Either they're going to stop going, or they're going to go try to seek treatment elsewhere outside the VA, maybe with Wounded Warrior or something like that. And the VA will have no evidence that they're going because the veteran doesn't have to tell them that they're still going and getting treatment somewhere else. Again, I'm willing to bet that they are aware of this. And so when veterans stop going, then they're going to say, you are completely cured because you're not showing up to therapy, you're not taking your medication. And it's a logical thought. It's a catch 22. It is a trap. Veterans with permanent and total designations face lower immediate risk as they are not subject to routine evaluation. However, any P&T veteran who files a new claim or requests an increase on another condition may expose their entire rating to review under the new standard. And guess what they're using to help it out? AI infrastructure already exists to execute this at scale. They planned this. So AI is going to decide whether or not a veteran is cured or not. And keep in mind, this is the benefit side. This is not the hospital side. These people that are making these decisions are not doctors. They're not nurses. They're not LVNs or LNs. They're not even, as we used to say back in the day, they're not even candy stripers. They're not even hospital volunteers. They are people who are hired, they are office employees with caseloads, arbitrarily making decisions about someone that they've never met, seen, spoken to, don't know the sound of their voice, nothing. These people are just files in front of them. And just arbitrarily one day they decide, oh, well, we're just going to reduce this person. Someone higher up made this decision. Booz Allen Hamilton, under existing VA contracts, has already built and deployed AI powering claims processing tools that have ingested over 1 billion veteran documents, including handwritten clinician notes, and converted them into structured, searchable, computable data. These tools include automated issue management, AI powered document search that makes review up to 9 times more efficient, and machine learning systems that auto-populate claims and determinations based on record analysis. And AI is going to determine how well or how sick you are. Booz Allen's own public materials state that these tools have created a massive repository of data enabling the VA to drive decision support, surface likely next actions for a claim and highlight risk areas. These capabilities, originally built to accelerate PACT Act claims, can be redirected to identify veterans whose medicated functional levels diverge from their current ratings. Combined with this new rule, this infrastructure enables automated in the identification, of rating reduction candidates at a scale no human, and it goes from there. So evidently it's longer than one page, but I think considering the meltdown that my old sergeant had when he sent me this, it was probably best that he just left it at one page. um, 'Cause that man's anger is no joke, and he is a walking stick of dynamite. So AI is wow. Now I mentioned the first thing the vets are going to do is stop taking their meds. Stop. Maybe go see a doctor out of the VA, outside of the VA, and not tell them. Those those types of decisions will catch up with them. So it's definitely not something that they want to do. But what other vets are doing is what this Vietnam vet did. Vietnam vet, law firms file suit over new VA ruling on disability rating exams. A Vietnam veteran who has appealed his Department of Veterans Affairs disability rating, has asked the courts to review a VA rule published Tuesday, that requires medical examiners to factor in the effects of medication on a service-connected condition when determining a veteran's disability rating. Andrew LaFawn has joined forces with several law firms to petition the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit to review the regulation, which was issued Tuesday as an interim final rule, immediately went into effect. So, in other words, we're going to screw over these vets, see if who catches on, and see if we can get away with it. That's why it's interim. They're also going to have to find a way to get this past Congress because the way Congress governs the VA, it's like the Congress trusts the VA to police itself. And by the time Congress finds out something's going on, things are bad in the VA. Then they got to step in and make a couple of heads roll. But eventually, the VA will start acting right for a minute and then go right back to what they were doing. Let's see. The rule clarified VA regulations on considering medical management of health conditions, when determining a veteran's disability rating. It was written in response to court decisions dating to 2012 that limited the consideration of medications effects by the VA's claims adjudications board. So in other words, so this is a middle finger to a court ruling. So they just bypassed the court ruling. We're gonna do what we want to do. Those court decisions also, however, noted that the VA secretary could adopt a regulation at any time that would clarify whether medications must be considered. And on Tuesday, the VA Secretary Doug Collins did just that, arguing that without the ruling, the VA would face a massive administrative burden and would pay out disability compensations based on levels that veterans are not actually experiencing. This idiot doesn't know that. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know if it's a massive burden. And I'll tell you something else, folks, about the VA that I learned. And just so you guys know, when I said it's near and dear to my heart, is because I am a veteran, also, yes, but I used to also file disability claims for veterans. And I know several veterans who work for the Veterans Affairs as claims specialists, human resources, among other things. And it was told to me through the grapevine that the VA's budget operates as if every veteran that is in the VA system is at 100% disability rating. All of them. That's how high their budget is. I understand and I appreciate trying to cut down on waste, fraud, and abuse. But this idiot just basically he just declared war on all of us. All those disabled vets out there who have real experiences and things, excuse me, that I know for a fact in some cases, or actually in many cases, people I know that have been dealing with the same issues for over 20 years. And this idiot just blankly decided that they were lying. We just gonna start reducing people. It's a massive administrative burden. Since when? When has the VA gone over budget and had to go to Congress begging for more money? It's usually somebody going to Congress because and filing a complaint with their congressman about the VA screwing them out, screwing them over, no, or not giving them something they're supposed to give them. The VA is already doing things to try to cut down on waste. The VA does. The VA, the benefit side, don't like giving people money. And I'm talking people that actually deserve it, that are actually disabled, that are actually having issues. They don't like doing nothing. It's like an insurance company. You pay into it, but then when you have that car accident, they put you through hell. Then they want to raise your premiums. Only in the VA's case, the veterans are paid for with their blood, sweat, and tears, literally, and in some cases, their sanity. And this idiot's gonna sit there and say, okay, well, this guy has deep mental issues, but he's taking his Prozac, so he doesn't need all this money. And guess what? In the meantime, he still can't go and get a job, or it's very difficult for him because a lot of companies, when you say you're a vet these days, they assume that you have PTSD and will not hire you. And I learned that just after I graduated with my master's degree in human resources management. Because again, I know people in that field as well. And they were the ones that told me what I just said. So the secretary, under this new rule, the medical examiners must consider a veteran's actual level of functional impairment, well, and can no longer estimate or discount improvements from medications. That sounds to me actual level of functional impairment. That tells me that he's got, in order for them to gauge that, the veteran has to stop taking his medication or stop going to his treatment or his therapy. That's what that sounds like to me. If the medication or treatment lowers the level of disability, the rating will be based on a lower level. Today's announcement infuriated veterans and advocacy groups who say the rule punishes veterans who comply with medical treatment, doesn't consider the burden or the side effects of taking daily medications. And that's the other thing. There are medications out there that you can't just quit cold turkey, but these veterans will do it because of what this idiot did, because of what this idiot Collins just did. That for some reason he thought he was going to get away with. Veterans Veterans is like it's like a sorority and a fraternity, or in some cases, in a lot of cases, I say almost like a gang. The veterans community is not a community that you want to pick a fight with. You do not want to pick fights with us. And every once in a while, you get some, you know what, in Congress, or well, not in Congress, but someone high up underneath them that thinks that they could pull something like this and think that we veterans are gonna just lay down and take it. I could go a little bit longer on this part. Let's see. Now, quote, medication can reduce symptoms. It can help a veteran sleep, reduce vigilance, or stop anxiety attacks, but it does not improve the underlying traumatic experience or moral injury, and it certainly does not mean a veteran can fully function without the treatment. American Legion National Commander Dan Wiley said in a statement on Wednesday. They also argue that it was drafted in secrecy, which it was, and published as a fait accompli, whatever that means, without appropriate input from those affected or experts in the field. Yeah, it wasn't. The man just sat down at his desk and just arbitrarily decided that he was going to screw over millions of veterans. Do you know how many you guys? If anybody's even still listening, if you made it to this part of the video, do you know how many veterans out there that have combat related PTSD? I don't have the number, but I will dare say I would not be surprised if this thing had gone through in full because of him. I would not be surprised if some of them went over and paid him, went to that man's house and paid him a visit. I wouldn't be surprised. There are veterans out there that have a variety of injuries that are not severe PTSD, but together make it so that those people can't work. They can't work a steady job. If they've got chronic migraines and things like that, along with their back issues and stuff like that, they can't because there's days where they might wake up and they have migraine and they can't go into work. How many employers are going to put up with that? You have to run on the company schedule, not the other way around. Combine that with Collins reducing your rating just because he feels like it. Sounds to me like somebody's trying to earn himself a bonus for cutting costs. That's what it sounds like to me. So let's see. Plaintiffs argue that the rule will cause economic harm to veterans and firms that represent them. They also say that it is contrary to a long-standing policy of ruling in favor of the veteran when the dispute arises. But and guess what? And I'll tell you this from experience. There is a rule saying that whenever there's a dispute, if a veteran files a claim, they're supposed to side with the veteran, depending on where you're at, depending on what VA regional office. Now, not all the offices will do that. It depends on what state you're in. If you're in Texas, for example, or California or Michigan, your chances are good. But if you're somewhere like Georgia or Ohio, good luck. Good luck getting them to do what they're supposed to do. My cousin lives in Georgia and has a severe back injury from a military deployment. He fought the VA for 7 years. He had to wait 5 of those 7 years to see to see the VA judge, who took less than a minute to grant my cousin his disability rating because the regional office in Georgia just decided that my cousin's injury was not military related, even though the injury was clearly outlined. It was all over his military medical file. It was all over that file, but they didn't want to acknowledge it. The back pay they had to give him hit six. It was six figures. There are thousands of these stories out there. You see, quote, this court should set aside the interim rule as it was made without observance of procedure as required by law. So he broke the law doing it, or as being arbitrary, capricious, and abuse of discretion and otherwise not in accordance with the law. Exactly, it wasn't. Collins just reinterpreted it in the way that he wanted. Guaranteed, willing to bet it doesn't. It didn't say what he was saying that it said, because the VA would have done this a long time ago. They would have done it in 2012 when the ruling came out, if they could do what he just did. But whoever his predecessors were had more sense than him. While the rule is considered final, the VA is taking comments from the public for a 60-day period and will consider the feedback according to the regulation. They're looking for somebody to blame. They want to put the blame on you guys, because what they're going to say is we operate on taxpayers' money, so the taxpayers should decide. And if the taxpayers don't have a problem with it, then we're going to go ahead and screw over these vets. And when the vets come looking for us with their torches and pitchforks, we're going to point at the citizens. It wasn't us that did it; it was them. As if that's going to work. By Thursday, 48 hours after the ruling passed, the regulation had received nearly 9,000 comments. Wesley Cawley, an accredited veterans agent with United Veterans Disability LLC and a plaintiff in the suit, said he has heard from veterans who are worried that their disability compensation will be reduced. In a post on his firm's site, Macaulay sought to reassure them, noting that the rule affects veterans who file new claims or appeals after the date the regulation was published. But if you get dragged in there, unless your rating is considered permanent, has been declared permanent in total, they are going to start dragging veterans in and reevaluating them. They can do that. What that lawyer said, that was a paper promise. It's not a grandfathering issue. They're going to get around to those veterans. They're going to start calling them in, and they're going to start reevaluating them. And they're going to ask them, "Are you taking your meds?" Yes. Boom. Reduced. In a post on his firm's site. Okay, no, so just read that. He promised also to continue fighting the ruling. Quote, if it's swift action Secretary Collins wants, we'll give him just that. We didn't monitor the situation. We didn't study the matter closely. No, instead, in less than 48 hours since this rule took effect, we filed a petition in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. This guy he's gonna get shellacked. Macaulay wrote. We didn't play around. We didn't study the situation. We took swift and immediate action. Yeah, he's going to get shellacked. Messing with veterans. And it's not just the veterans, it's their families, it's other citizens. Collins is going to get destroyed behind this, one way or the other. So, what could possibly have happened? What could have happened next after those lawsuits started getting filed? Well, lo and behold, Mike. Well, look, would you look at that? VA pauses new disability rule 2 days after announcing it. Department of Veterans Affairs Doug Collins announced the rule will not be enforced at any time in the future. Yeah, dummy. Guarantee you those lawsuits caught the right, or in his case, the wrong ears. Guarantee you some congressman, somebody called him and said, "What in the hell are you doing? What in the hell do you think you're doing? What made you think that you could just jump around the rules that govern the VA, which, by the way, are created by Congress? What made you think that you could just arbitrarily start messing with people's ratings and start pulling this underhanded crap?" I'm going to allege this, and this is speculation. This is just things that I've seen throughout my experience with the VA that I've noticed. When somebody tries to pull what Collins tried to pull, either one or two things has happened. Either Collins or someone like him is trying to get a bonus by reducing costs, or someone high up has been stealing money and is trying to use veterans to recoup that money and cover it up. Both of those situations have happened. I got put out of a program because a new director came in and wanted to get his bonus and started kicking people out of the program for no reason other than he wanted to get his bonus at the end of the year. So, excuse me. VA Secretary Doug Collins announced on Thursday that the agency is halting enforcement of the rule after introducing it with no public notice just 2 days before. His Thursday comments did not immediately make clear whether the rule will be formally rescinded, but Collins added that the rule will not be enforced at any time in the future. So, in other words, I'm not going to take this. I'm not going to take this off the books. I'm going to try to find a way to sneak it through. I'm just going to leave it here until the heat on it dies down and maybe people forget, and then I'll try to roll it out, and seek either in secret or sometime in some way in the future. Nah, because now everybody's going to be watching this guy. Veterans don't forget. Once we see something like that, no. And those lawsuits that were filed, I I wouldn't cancel them. I keep them on. He's trying to, yeah, he knows that he screwed up. He knows he did. So yeah, all the veterans organizations got on him. Traditional, the American Legion, shoot, even newer organizations like Burn Pits 360 and Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, they were on him. Veterans and advocates all noted that the VA put the rule in place with no public input and warned that veterans might feel compelled under this rule to stop taking prescribed medications to avoid a lower rating, which is exactly what they would do. And then the VA will come back around and say, "Oh, you stop taking your meds, you're cured. Boom! Now your entire rating's gone." That was step two. This guy, this a-hole was about to kick millions of veterans off their disability ratings. That's his plan. But he didn't think that he was going to get the pushback that he got. He thought that everybody was going to lay down and take it. He really thought that. I'm going to check and see if these lawsuits are still going, and see if I can get, and see if there's any way that I can get, that I can help and get involved. Because somebody like that, an example needs to be made out of him. An example needs to be, I mean, they're being polite about it, but yeah, I applaud the secretary for making this decision, allowing the litigation to proceed in the court. Yeah, exactly. So that so the lawsuits are, they're not stopping. I applaud him for allowing the litigation to proceed in court and with your voices. How's he going to stop it? He can't stop them from suing, and that's why he really stopped it. That's why he stopped it. He still wants to do it, but he's going to wait and see what the court says. Because when he said, "Well, we're not going to do it in the future could be 90 days." But he wants to make sure that his hands are clean, even though they're dirty. His hands got dirt on it that he can't get off, regardless of what that court says. And I guarantee you, if that court rules in his favor, it's going up to the Supreme Court, and it's probably going to get overturned. Look at what Collins said in his announcement. Collins did not disavow the policy, framing it as a way to quote protect veterans' benefits in the wake of ongoing court action. Yeah. With that said, I think I'll end things here. Thank you guys. It has been an hour and 3 minutes and counting. Thank you for listening to my late night rant. Um, I'm pretty sure for those of you who've never served, it's probably it might sound like a different language, but I want to thank you for sticking through as much of it as you could, and I'll be back with something new very soon. But in the meantime, hope to see you guys over at Samuel the Infamous's channel for Abyssal Musings, and also on Saturday he does Screaming into the Void. Till then, talk to you guys later.